And so the investigation into 9/11 seems to me, and I think that's coming from people who survived, people whose family members were killed in the collapse of those buildings. They're the ones who are really demanding that there be a new investigation. Well, how that should be processed, I don't know, but certainly it should be more public in the sense that they just simply publish their findings as they did in the commission report. I mean, I think we need to reopen the Kennedy assassination as well. I mean, there's lots of stuff that we really...
How about Kucinich?
Yeah.
Nobody found out why his airplane fell down.
Yeah.
What happened to Kucinich?
Well, we didn't find... Oh, no, not Kucinich.
Wellstone.
Wellstone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got
Why
the
did
wrong
his plane
person.
fall out of the sky? But there was a Kennedy who had a similar disaster, and there was one that was shot in Texas. No, I don't really believe that all these incidents have been described by historians accurately, although some of them are coming to the surface, the Lusitania and so forth. Those are being shown to be scams, the Tonkin Gulf resolution. But this one, there's one thing that just stands in my mind, a building falling in its own footprint that has got to happen with implanted explosives. It could not happen any other way.
Had to be controlled demolition. Right?
Controlled demolition. That's the only way a building can fall in its own footprint.
And then Building 7, that's a 48-story building, and it wasn't even hit by an airplane.
Yeah, nothing.
And that fell on its own footprint, too.
Right, yeah. So somebody, I mean, those things that are so obvious to everybody. I mean, everybody has seen controlled demolition buildings fall down, and they don't harm the buildings around them. They just come down in their own footprint. And everybody knows that it's planted demolition, you know. So the whole world should be saying this is a scam.
Is it possible that bin Laden got into those buildings and planted the explosives?
You're right. I don't, frankly, Jane seems to be not sure whether that group of people were involved, but I'm sure that they weren't. That the only people who could have done it is people who are employed by the United States government. And when I say that, not necessarily government employees. They could have been Blackwater people. They could have been anybody. But they were getting their money from the United States government to do it. It was planned. And when the first building got hit, I said, oh my God, that's awful. That's terrible. When the second building got hit, I said, oh my God, they're burning the Reichstag.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought.
Burning the Reichstag instantly.
Yeah.
I knew that they were burning the Reichstag.
But if if the president himself weren't involved, why would he be so...
I didn't say that.
No, well, we don't know for sure who did it, but let's reason it out rationally. If he weren't involved, why does he resist a new investigation?
Hey, you can answer your own question, and the whole world can.
Yeah, I think it's an important question.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And, you know, we point... Liberty Union has taken the position that this administration and the two previous, Clinton and Bush 1, are war criminals. And it's not just the president, but it's also the Congress that voted to finance the illegal wars, that is, illegal in the sense of international law.
Ultimately, we become guilty, too. We've allowed them to happen. We were all involved as war criminals.
On the other hand, not always, I mean, there's a way of saying about the Germans, well, they knew, and they should all bear the responsibility. But I'm not sure that we can say that about the citizenry of the United States, because I don't think they knew. We tried. I mean, we were out on the streets with the information, and they believed the government because they controlled the means, the media. They control mass communication. It's all owned by the same people. The same people who are involved in the banking fiasco, the same people who give money to put people in Congress, the same people, they're all the same. The wealthy of this world control the world, and they control the media. So what we know, unless we go digging in the little corners, particularly on the internet now, unless we do that, we have no valid information coming from CNN and CNBC and those. I mean, NBC owns General Electric owns NBC too.
I think Jane had an important point there, though, that we should emphasize about the incubators and the babies.
Oh, yeah.
We never would have been involved in any of this in Iraq, Afghanistan, or any of the current wars if back in 1990, when the Senate was voting, should we stop Saddam from invading Kuwait, they didn't hear the story about the babies in the incubators.
Everybody who voted yes raised the Amnesty International report of the incubators, every single one of them. And I said, Amnesty International is a CIA front, and I still believe it to this very day.
Well, I remember the time. You may be right, but I remember seeing on TV the testimony there about the incubators.
Yeah.
And I don't remember anything about Amnesty International. So it may not have been only them, but I'm sure that the senators that voted were influenced, since it wasn't a unanimous vote. If you only influenced a few of the senators, that would be enough to cause all this disaster that we've gone through for the last
18 years, 19, almost 19. We're in the 19th year of this war.
19 years.
See,
1990 until...
I don't believe that Congress people are that innocent. I mean, before the incubator thing happens, they were training the military for desert warfare.
Right.
They were 6 months ahead of time. There was some woman over there, I've forgotten, she was a diplomat. April Glaspie.
April Glaspie.
She told Saddam Hussein that we wouldn't do anything if he wanted to invade Kuwait. And Kuwait was burrowing underground and stealing oil from Iraq at the time. And we were, I mean, it was right after the Iraq-Iran war, and Iraq was in bad trouble financially and needed the money from the oil, and Kuwait was stealing it. And so all those things were happening, and all of a sudden the baby's in the incubator. Come on, I think people know a lot more. They just that's part of the whole idea of that area, especially the Caspian Sea, was very well known for a long time to have unknown amounts of oil under the sea or around it. Most of the pipelines you see that they've been trying to control, that the United States has been trying to control, comes from the Caspian Sea area. I remember, so obviously oil was on our minds back in those days, and there's some excuse to be in that part of the world. And I think Saddam Hussein also nationalized the oil, so our oil companies couldn't get in there. And I remember seeing an article in the New York Times somewhere in the late 90s with our president at the time.
Guy named Clinton.
Clinton. I'm sorry, this is a 77-year-old brain. Clinton was in Georgia, I believe, the country of Georgia. And he was butting up to the Georgian president, and there were a couple other important people there. And underneath it said that they were trying to discover ways to put in a pipeline that would bypass Russia and bypass Iran. And that was in the middle of the 90s. So it was obvious that I think that the first Gulf War, or the beginning of this whole entire thing in Iraq, was a means to destabilize Iraq, something awful. We told the Shiites in the south to rebel against Saddam, and then left them.
We gave them some weapons to do it with,
yeah,
too.
And then we left them there. And then Saddam, of course, went and murdered a bunch of them, their mass graves and stuff around. And then up in the north with the Kurds, we protected them for all during the 1990s. They did really well. I'm not sure, young Galbraith was over there. And for some reason, those people didn't suffer at all. So all these three groups of people were made hostile toward each other, more hostile, during the 90s. So it's this divide and conquer.
The Hussein government had a contract, an agreement with the Kurdish establishment for virtual home rule in the Kurdish neighborhood, and they even had their own medical system and their own education system, and that was a resolved issue until the United States became involved.
Well,